Hello everyone, I'm Jacob, Community Manager with Paradox Studio Black. Today we'll be reading the words of LeChuck as he walks us through a feature coming to the whole world with All Under Heaven, but which has a special impact on China specifically: natural disasters. When considering the success rate of medieval rulers, we often consider how cleverly they played important factions against each other, how they picked the right time and place to lead their armies to victory, and, in Crusader kings' terms, how they managed their dynasty's blood through setting up capable successors and arranging the right marriages. But another important factor is how they respond when disaster strikes. When the unthinkable happens, will you be prepared or caught short? Will you be able to look after your people with the selfless care your crown demands? Or will someone else swoop in and seize the opportunity to demonstrate their own benevolence? Will you stand tall, or will you have to cash in all of your goodwill and sell your soul to restore control over your provinces? These are the signs of a skillful ruler that we're challenging you to display with the natural disasters feature in All Under Heaven. Famously, the devastating Yellow River floods in the 11th and 12th centuries not only inflicted casualties to the tune of hundreds of thousands of lives lost, but also undermined the Song dynasty's ability to fund defenses against the Jurchens and Mongols. And the Yellow River was not content with contributing only to the fall of the Song dynasty. In the 14th century, when China had fallen to the Mongols and was ruled by the Yuan dynasty, it flooded again, precipitating the famine and revolts that eventually gave rise to the Red Turban Rebellion and the subsequent rise of the Ming dynasty. The scope of devastation inflicted by floods and earthquakes upon China was enormous, and tied directly to the people's view of how suited they were to hold the mandate of heaven. But calamity is indiscriminate. It can happen to anyone, anywhere. The Rhine flooded frequently, causing difficulty for local princes and townships in the Holy Roman Empire. The Aleppo earthquake of 1138, which may have claimed over 200,000 lives, weakened Muslim states in the Levant and served as a temporary boon for the Crusader states in the area, until the power vacuum paved the way for leaders like Nur ad-Din to emerge, who later became a central figure in resisting the same European invaders. In designing this feature, we had to be careful to ensure that natural disasters shake up the political landscape of the region appropriately, while not punishing players caught up in it through no fault of their own. Natural disasters are, by their very nature, random, and there's not much even the wisest ruler, particularly in medieval times, can do to stop an earthquake or flood from happening. To address this, we leaned into the governance aspect of natural disasters. In other words, how do you respond to a calamity occurring in your realm? To illustrate this, let us take you on a bit of a journey. The year is 1081, and Caliph al-Mahid the Trickster rules the Fatimid Sultanate, freshly crowned at a mere 34 years of age after the untimely death of his father, claimed before his time by a mild tickle in his throat. All is well in the realm, and were it not for my unceasing war against Emir Hussein, the priest-hater of the Hashemid Emirate and his godless supporters, life is pretty good in Egypt under the circumstances. The Nile is revered for its frequent flooding, but this year is different. The water won't stop rising. Something is amiss. The river expands even beyond the floodplains, engulfing everything in its path. We know what's coming, but the unwashed masses, by and large, do not yet. A natural disaster is a type of situation, like the Great Steppe from Khans of the Steppe, and the dynastic cycle in Silk Road also coming in All Under Heaven. Situations have participating characters, geographic regions, and can go through phases, each with their own effects and modifiers. We're currently in the warning phase of this coming disaster, which currently has no effects. This will soon change, however. As the first warning signs appear, we get a choice of waiting to see what happens or immediately devoting ourselves to addressing this calamity. If the disaster had affected our court, we'd also have an option to go into isolation. Though this would cost us dearly in the court of public opinion in the short term, it's better that the ruler survives to see the disaster through to its conclusion than perish alongside his people, or so a ruler would say. Soon thereafter, the disaster reaches its impact phase. People at large now understand the terrible danger they're in, And who do they blame? Why, us, of course. When impact hits, you lose legitimacy. Usually the amount is bearable if you're a well-established ruler with a good track record and the trust of the people. But me, a recently crowned caliph who can't seem to wrap up a war against the priest-hater, it hurts. Note that this legitimacy loss will be substantially higher if you were the Emperor of China, due to the entanglement between the welfare of the realm and the mandate of heaven. A flood or earthquake in China could be spun as proof of the ruling dynasty's corruption, and if the disaster strikes during a period of instability in the dynastic cycle, it hits even harder. People will die. My half-brother, Prince Muammar, is among them. One less claimant to the throne, perhaps. Not only people, but the land itself will be affected by this disaster. Hopefully, the priest-hater isn't in a position to take advantage of this. Your counties can be afflicted by many different consequences of the disaster itself. But finally, the worst is over. We now enter a recovery phase, where we can try to rebuild what was lost and restore the people's faith in your ruler. But even this phase is not harmless. For every month we remain in disrepair, we lose more legitimacy. The road to people's hearts is paved with gold, of course. The more the better. But it's not all doom and gloom. Once this great project is complete, not only will you remove most or all of the negative modifiers you've suffered due to the disaster, but you will also gain rewards for every contribution you made. In addition, for floods specifically, the affected provinces gain bonuses from the silt and moisture left behind. The cost of each component of the restoration can be sizable, and depend primarily on the number of counties affected, their development, and the severity of the disaster itself. No two disasters will play out the same in this regard, so you might want to carefully consider which is best to do first given the expense involved. Land drainage, for example, will tie up much of your army for 10 years, but give you a permanent plus 10 direct vassal opinion boost as soon as you fund it. The primary rewards, in terms of legitimacy and learning experience in this case, aren't gained until the entire project is completed. Meanwhile, Survivor Recovery will give you a popular opinion boost upon taking it, but also a tax burden to carry through the recovery efforts until the project is completed. Optional contributions aren't necessary to complete the project, but if you can afford them, they can give you much greater rewards. Resettling refugees requires you to give up some of the land until the project is complete, resulting in a reduced domain limit for characters of most cultures, but yields twice the legitimacy and a levy reinforcement boost. All of these rewards and costs are scaled by innovations. Elephants make it easier to remove debris, for example. But of course, as time passes in-game, so does development, and recovering from late-game natural disasters can be much more expensive, especially if you haven't kept up with your technological progress. China starts with many relevant innovations to help it control disasters even in 1066, while others will need time to catch up. If you cannot pay for a recovery project yourself, perhaps there are others who can. The Natural Disaster Recovery Project screen gives you insight into who else might be willing to foot the bill for a part of this project, and it also allows you to try and convince them to do so. My vassal, for example, is on decent terms with me and might be willing to help with the land drainage while I deal with housing reconstruction. In exchange for a strong hook, that is, but it will do for now. At least he will suffer a 75% levy reinforcement rate penalty for a while in the event he chooses to rise up against me. This is doable. It will be fine. Teamwork makes the dream work. Maybe in a few years I'll get another wealthy vassal who I could convince to handle the last part, since this war against the priest-hater is really taxing me. Or maybe I could fabricate a hook on that wealthy nephew of mine who refuses to play ball. Natural disasters will be displayed on the map itself in two different ways. A map pin will appear on disaster epicenters at quite generous zoom levels to let you easily spot them even when they don't occur in your realm directly. Selecting the map pin will open the situation panel for the disaster. Terrain shaders will be applied to the map when zoomed in, so you can really feel the devastation. Here's where we would show you an epic screenshot, but these are currently getting their final touches applied after our recent map graphics upgrades, so you'll have to wait to see those in-game. Natural disasters obviously don't care about your realm borders, however. A flood will affect all counties adjacent to the river, and an earthquake can span counties in multiple realms. Where a single disaster overlaps many realms, a recovery project will be created in each of them. You only pay for the provinces in your realm, but it's also only those provinces that reap the benefits of your contributions. The disaster situation itself will disappear once the final recovery has been completed. Finally, let's talk about frequency, and about China. Natural disasters are rare occurrences. You might play a full campaign and not be directly affected by one at all, even across centuries. To some degree, this also depends on the terrain in your realm and what part of the world you're playing in. Regions that historically suffered earthquakes or floods during this era have a higher probability of being affected by one. When a region is afflicted, it is more likely to be centered in terrain suitable for that disaster type. Mountainous regions will be more prone to suffer earthquakes, and provinces far from major rivers won't get flooded. However, quite naturally, the larger the realm, the larger the risk that one part of it will be struck by disaster at any given time. For a realm the size of China, the likelihood of having to deal with them is high. Thankfully, the Emperor has access to two tools to deal with this problem that most rulers don't. The Imperial Treasury, which can be used in place of gold to pay for great projects, and a great many governors whose fat salaries should really be put to better use than promoting their estates when the future of the realm is at stake. With the increased impact on legitimacy due to the unceasing turning of the dynastic cycle and the people's perception of how disasters are a sign from the heavens that change is needed, natural disasters could possibly break or make a Chinese dynasty. We hope you will enjoy this opportunity to prove your benevolence and competence as a ruler, or for the more cunning among you, to use the upheaval to your advantage. As always, thank you for watching, and if you want to stay up to date with everything Crusader Kings, then please subscribe to the channel and like this video. If you have any questions about the mechanics we've shown today, then drop a comment in the replies and we'll do our best to get back to you. As a preemptive warning, we won't be doing these companion videos for further Coordinations dev diaries. We've covered the bulk of content coming in Coordinations already, and future dev diaries for this update are more conceptual in nature, covering art and music as well as changelog specifics. That said, we will be back here next Tuesday for a dev diary covering something slightly different. Don't miss it.